A riveting sequel, Top Gun Maverick, starring Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer, was released 36 years after the legendary first film. The 1990s were a lucrative decade for Val as an actor. He has been one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces for nearly 40 years. Even though Val was a successful actor, he had to endure so many tragic occurrences in his personal life before he could keep going. He became known for being notoriously tough to collaborate with. Val was dealing with his own personal struggles, but nobody dared to go further than the surface. In this devastating look at Val Kilmer's life, we invite you to join us. On December 31st, 1959, Val Kilmer entered this world in Los Angeles, California, also known as the City of Angels. Gladys Swanett and Eugene Doris Kilmer had 3 kids. He was the second. Even though he was born and raised in Texas, Eugene, Val's dad, had a mixed heritage that comprised Cherokee, Irish, and German. Although she was born and brought up in Indiana, Gladys's family was from Sweden. Although he dabbled in real estate development in his spare time, Eugene's day job was distributing aerospace equipment. Gladys had a career in advertising before she married Eugene. After purchasing a guest ranch with Eugene and a business partner, she transitioned to the hospitality industry. In Chatsworth, the couple brought up Val, Mark, and Wesley, the couple's younger brothers. Their house was in close proximity to the infamous Spahn movie ranch, where Charles Manson and his family lived. In passing, Val brought up the fact that they used to visit the Spahn ranch where they all lived. It was the nearest spot where one could hire a horse to go on a trail ride. Donald Shorty Shea, an employee at Spahn Ranch, was the one who mounted me. Individuals associated with the Manson family murdered him. In 1968, when Val was 9 years old, his parents chose to divorce, leaving a lasting impression on his life. This divorce began to isolate Val from his family because of how devastated he was by it. Living with their father, the 3 boys settled down. However, this did little to improve the strained connection between Val's father and son. Instead of being gregarious, he became more introverted and reflective. It took a long time, but he and his father eventually had a rocky relationship. His mother remarried William Bernard Leach in 1970, 2 years after the divorce. Maybe this is why Val decided to pursue acting at such a young age, so he could temporarily escape his difficult circumstances. He turned down a role in a hamburger ad when he was 12 years old because he couldn't bring himself to pretend he was passionate about the product. He couldn't get himself to think he didn't because he was a young method actor. Plus, he couldn't pull off the role if he didn't really believe his character's lines. To make a long story short, Val's acting aspirations were unabated even though he was cast as the child in the commercial. He went to Chatsworth High School with Mayor Winningham, the Oscar-winning stage actress, and Kelvin Spacey, who went on to win numerous Oscars. Actually, Val dated Winningham while they were in high school. When he was ready to apply to schools, he went all out in his pursuit of his dream of being a theater major. After hearing that the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London was the top institution, I followed his advice and applied. However, the application said that you had to be 18 years old, which I found unacceptable. I persisted in inquiring about this requirement. My question was, where is the other top school? The consensus was Juilliard. And he did apply to Juilliard. The Juilliard School's drama division admitted Val at the age of 16, making her the youngest student ever to do so. However, something terrible was still on the horizon, even with this positive development. For a long time after this, Val would feel the effects. Val loved his younger brother Wesley, who had ambitions of becoming a director, right before he enrolled at Juilliard. Our friend Wesley had epilepsy. And in 1977, during a fit, he drowned in a pool. He was 15 years old at the time. My little brother was, simply a phenomenal artist, a genius, Val remarked following his brother's death. Honestly, I was kind of amazed by him. He spoke into detail about how this catastrophe altered his mental state, surpassing even the anguish of his parents' divorce. Why? Because my younger brother passed away only 1 week before I began my first week of school. I had to confront some deep questions about my life and my beliefs about death. Juilliard provided him with an excellent opportunity to move past that challenging period. After attending his brother's funeral, he immediately rushed to his New York City acting school to pursue a career in theater. Val was solely concerned with savoring the moment. He chose to honor his teacher's dedication and selflessness. He had a wonderful time learning how to learn and finding inspiration because of this. Juilliard was remarkable, he said. The training he received was like a trial by fire for a demanding job, and the environment was incredibly tough. You have to love it more than anything you can possibly imagine because it is an incredibly difficult job. The role that linked him to his initial film, Top Secret 1984, was in his Broadway debut, The Slab Boys, which took place 6 years later. Val turned down a part in Francis Ford Coppola's 1983 picture The Outsider due to his other obligations in the theater. One Too Many, an instructional drama featuring a driving and drinking plot, was an ABC after-school special that gave him his first opportunity to act outside of the spotlight that same year. A young Michelle Pfeiffer was in the cast. It was at this time that he released My Edens After Burns, a limited edition collection of poems he had written in response to his experiences with Michelle Pfeiffer. By the way, whatever his relationship was with Pfeiffer. Their friendship began in the early 1980s when Cher's birthday introduced Val to her. From 1982 to 1984, they were romantically involved. Their time together appeared to have been treasured, even though Cher was 14 years Val's senior. Certainly such was Cher's interpretation. Our shared sense of humor allowed us to quickly become friends. At first, it was merely a friendship he would sleep over. That was time-consuming. To be honest, it hasn't been very long. Even Val couldn't deny it. Once Cher gets inside your mind and heart, she's there to stay. Her unwavering devotion and affection for her genuine companions endures forever. Their unique quality was obvious, yet it was ultimately insufficient. As a result, they broke up. In fact, Val's breakthrough came in the same year, 1984. In the comic spy film Top Secret, he played the role of a rock and roll musician from the United States. There were rumors that Val at first took the humorous content too seriously, criticizing the purposeful frivolity of the content with an air of seriousness. Val traveled around Europe with his duffel and rucksack after Top Secret, but he returned the next year to star in Willow and the cult masterpiece Real Genius. But the 1986 film set the stage for the one that would catapult him to stardom. Tony Scott adapted an article by Ahihud Yoan called Top Guns into the film Top Gun. The role of Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell was played by Tom Cruise in the film. Anthony Edwards, Kelly McGillis, Val Kilmer, and Tom Skerritt were all part of the main cast, however they only had supporting parts. Lieutenant Tom Iceman Kazansky, Maverick's adversary, was supposed to be played by Val. The Top Gun script did not impress him. That section was not for me. I was uninterested in the movie. I was uninterested in the story. Thankfully, Val was convinced to be a part of the picture by Tony Scott, the legendary filmmaker. To make matters worse, Val attempted to fumble his audition by stating I read the lines indifferently, and yet amazingly I was told I had the part. I felt more deflated than inflated every day after filming. Val and Cruise would split into two factions due to their differences on set. Nonetheless, they maintained their professionalism right up until the very end of filming. The film was a commercial smash despite early critical backlash. Made $357 million worldwide from a mere $15 million in manufacturing costs. In 1986, the highest-grossing domestic picture was Top Gun. Many famous filmmakers approached Val about casting him in their films when he became famous, but he turned them all down. Sadly, he did pass on a few films that would later become critically acclaimed features. When I was younger, I was quite naive, Val commented in reference to his decisions. Looking back, the reasons I turned down a plethora of fantastic directors are a mystery to me. Robert Altman and David Lynch were both politely declined. Even though I recall David Lynch, the second film I turned down was Blue Velvet due of its visual nature and my lack of confidence at the time. However, it is evident that his career was unaffected by these rejections. Were introduced on the set of Willow in 1988, and after one of the briefest dating periods ever, they were married that same year after being engaged. A daughter, Mercedes, and a boy, Jack, were later born into their partnership. Once his personal matters were resolved, Val devoted himself fully to his career, achieving great success and esteem during the 1990s. Now he had films that were financially successful. In one of these films, Batman Forever, released in 1995, he portrayed the title character. Once that was out of the way, he joined The Doors as Jim Morris. Resulted from Val, a method actor undergoing a physical metamorphosis to faithfully portray the iconic musician. In an effort to seem like the artist, he gained weight and even wore false teeth. He frequented the Sunset Close watering holes frequented by Jim Morrison and had attire reminiscent of Morrison. Those working with him were even instructed to address him as Jim by him. For about a year before the production, Val worked on this. Some Doors members lauded him for his excellent work. Thus, his efforts were not in vain. They were honest about the fact that they had trouble telling Val and Morrison apart at one point. "I have seen Bob giggling like a schoolgirl in a van in the middle of the night because we have to be quiet because they are filming outside." Val treasured the experience of working with fellow co-stars Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. He went on to play the role of Chris Shirless in 1995's Heat. "In the heart of downtown Los Angeles, Al Pacino embraced me as if he were my older brother." Unfortunately, another tragedy befell Val just as he was making strides in his acting career. After his father passed away in 1995, his two sons, Mark and Val, became increasingly estranged from one another. The siblings were unable to resolve their disagreement on the distribution of their father's assets. Mark, Val's older brother, came to the conclusion that Val lacked a positive relationship role model in his childhood and became distant from him as a result. Not only that, but he and his wife divorced after 8 years of marriage, a decision that may have been influenced by Val. A model named Cindy Crawford with claims of adultery leveled against her. Reportedly, the couples fought over property and finances due to the severity of the split. Even though their father was quite wealthy, Wally insisted that her children were still living in motels and borrowed houses. "We have become a millstone around her husband's neck," she said, letting everybody know her true feelings about him. As an explanation for why his marriage failed, Val would later assert that his complete immersion in his role as Jim Morrison in The Doors was a contributing factor. He reasoned that his wife must have found it difficult to cope with him portraying the troubled musician for nearly a year. While Wally was on set for The Island of Dr. Moreau, he had Val served with divorce papers because she had not married Jim Morrison. And the filmmaker was none other than John Frankenheimer, who spearheaded the complaint that other Hollywood heavy hitters would subsequently spread over their experiences working with Val. John Frankenheimer was forthright about his dislike of Val's work. "Neither will I ever again collaborate with Val Kilmer, and I certainly will not conquer Everest. The world's money supply is inadequate." After filming Wrapped, Val continued his career and earned a reputation as one of the worst actors to work with in American cinema. A tabloid even ran an article titled "Val Kilmer Makes Enemies in Hollywood" about him. No matter the box office success, many in Hollywood are unwilling to collaborate with him. The idea that he was only impacted by the divorce was one of Val's arguments. The divorce was finalized in 1998 between him and his ex-wife. Rumor has it that they are no longer amicable. He met Cindy at the 1995 Batman Forever premiere, and Val later confessed to dating her for a while after his marriage failed. He expressed his feelings for the supermodel in a written piece. "Cindy was someone I loved and continued to love. The joy of her affection was so overwhelming that I seriously considered suicide as a result. I would be so happy I would die." They were together for 2 years until breaking up in 1997. Additionally, he made an appearance in the 1997 film The Saint. Val was keen on the idea of working on The Saint because he was in the market for a change from serious action thrillers to lighter fare. As a result of the film's success, Val was paid $6 million for it and also penned the poetry that appears in it, earning over $100 million across the globe. In 1997's Batman and Robin, Val would have gotten another substantial paycheck for her role as Batman. However, he allegedly had a tense working relationship with director Joel Schumacher. As a result, George Clooney ended up with the payout. Even though Val passed up a lucrative opportunity, he managed to attract A-listers to his love list. Val, during their time together filming the 2004 thriller Alexander, Angelina Jolie allegedly dated for a short spell. Brad Pitt was not yet involved. I was so excited to kiss Angie, buy her a Gulfstream jet, and have a V+J painted in rainbow glory on the tail after Val raved about her in his writing. Paparazzi were enamored with this modernist Madonna after she adopted her first child, Maddox, who was born not long ago. Depicting the epitome of unreachable celebrity and incredibly stylish mother instinct. According to him, Jolie rescued him from his own hands and he would be eternally thankful to her. He began dating actress Daryl Hannah, a relationship he regrets more than any of his others, and the relationship ended for unknown reasons. For a while, Val had little-known parts in films. Val has already had great supporting roles in films like Kiss Bang Co. starring Robert Downey Jr. and The Salton Sea starring Tom Cruise, both of which were commercial successes by the early 2000s. Presented by the Phoenix Film Critics Society, the film was named Overlooked Film of the Year. With a supporting part alongside Denzel Washington in 2006's box office smash Deja Vu, he had a third reunion with director Tony Scott. Another devastating disaster befell Val that year. He was unable to pay his taxes, and he lost his cherished home. Val was able to invest his fortune in property after the success of films like Heat and Batman Forever. The majority of the 5,300-acre property in San Miguel County, New Mexico, which he bought for $33 million, was situated on his ranch. This vast ranch, which was once known as Forked Lightning, stretched over 6 miles along the Pecos River. There were a number of homes and cabins spread out over hundreds of acres of pasture land. Val maintained a bed breakfast on the estate for a while, but guests had a hard time getting reservations because of his racist and sexist tirades about the neighborhood. But in 2006, Val was told by the IRS that he owed $500,000 in overdue taxes. Thus, Val started the procedure of selling his cherished property for half of its original purchase price. Problems of its own kind arrived in 2007. Val, who was now in her mid-30s, appeared to be overweight and unfit. The news outlets were quite forthright. Val Kilmer moves on from Batman to Fat Man, according to their writing. Despite the fact that what appears to be a very significant beer belly now stands where a six-pack once rippled across Val Kilmer's chest, they persisted in body-shaming him without considering what might have happened to him. For several years, this name-calling continued. But Val was a man who had weathered the storm and would use it to his advantage. He makes an effort to improve his physical health by eating better and going for long walks on the beach near his house in Malibu, California. The weight loss attempt paid off a few years down the road. Even after he had worked hard to lose weight, the media couldn't help but poke fun at the 55-year-old guy. Some of them even smirked. Gaunt in a Malibu Levi's ad, Val Kilmer exposes his drastically slimmed physique. After his work with Nicolas Cage on Bad Lieutenant Port of Call New Orleans' Werner Herzog, Val went on to collaborate with 50 Cent on Streets of Blood, among other high-profile projects. In an NBC live-action series based on the computer game 13, he portrayed the lead villain Mongoose. New generation talents like Ryan Gosling and Michael Fassbender were among Val's collaborators, and she continued to obtain parts. In fact, Val co-starred in Pay Dirt with her daughter Mercedes. But fans had no idea that Val was dealing with health issues that would sap him of a significant ability. Despite losing his voice, Val battled a throat malignancy that was almost fatal. The talent that brought him his first employment and made him famous in parts like Jim Morrison in The Doors. Now everyone knows that Val sang every note for the part, which is how he got the part. It is impossible to imagine the anguish of losing something priceless. Val fought this cancer secretly for a number of years. Even though actor Michael Douglas publicly disclosed Val's illness, although inadvertently. In denial, Val said that Douglas was likely attempting to aid him due to the media's pressure on Douglas to divulge his whereabouts. Val also mentioned that he had a successful cancer cure. He detailed how, despite the fact that it was healing, His tongue remained swollen and prevented him from sounding like himself. Because of this, many thought he was gravely ill. Nevertheless, Val made his triumphant public announcement about overcoming cancer in 2017. 2 tracheotomies and over 2 years of chemotherapy were actually necessary for the healing of the malignancy he had previously stated. Val had just triumphed over a very aggressive and severe kind of cancer if he had to treat it for 2 years. Regrettably, the catastrophe was far from over. While still battling illness, Val penned a tribute to her late mother, who passed away in 2019. "You're looking at my mom. She is much missed. Your love and sacrifice are enormous, all you lovely souls who have chosen to be mothers." The next year, Amazon Studios released Val of Their Father's Life, a one-of-a-kind documentary that Jack, Val's sister, and Val himself had produced. As stated in the description, Val Kilmer, a notoriously unstable actor in Hollywood, has been chronicling his career and personal life on film. His collection of home movies with his brothers and his experience playing legendary roles in blockbuster films like Batman and Top Gun totals hundreds of hours. A voiceover that sounded like Val discussing his life was intercut with public and private video in the film. However, it was really Jack who spoke in his father's stead, as cancer had already taken Val's voice. In Top Gun Maverick, the sequel to Top Gun, which was released in May 27, 2022, Val co-starred with Tom Cruise as Tom Iceman Kazansky, the latter's renowned character. The Iceman's unwavering resilience in the face of devastating tragedy makes one wonder if Val had a purpose in casting this character.